The sun was setting over Paris, casting long shadows over the city. Sophie Duval walked briskly down a narrow alley, the air filled with the sounds of evening life. Despite the recent victory over le Cercle Noir, she knew the battle was far from over. The shadows still held many secrets, and she was determined to bring them to light. Since the explosive press conference, Sophie had been living under constant threat. Her phone was tapped, her movements were monitored, and her allies were in hiding. But Sophie's resolve was unshaken. The people had a right to know the truth, and she was prepared to risk everything to ensure they did. One evening, as Sophie returned to her apartment, she found an envelope slipped under her door. Inside was a single sheet of paper with an address and a time, 10 p.m. The note was unsigned, but Sophie recognized the handwriting. It was Marc's. Sophie arrived at the location, a decrepit warehouse on the outskirts of Paris. The building was dark and foreboding, but she pressed on, her determination driving her forward. As she stepped inside, a faint light flickered in the distance. She followed it to a small, dimly lit room where Marc, Isabelle, and Henri were waiting. "We've uncovered something big," Marc said, his voice barely above a whisper. Le Cercle Noir is regrouping under a new leader. They call him the Phoenix. Isabelle nodded, her expression grave. The Phoenix is more ruthless and cunning than anyone we've encountered before. He's determined to rebuild the society and continue their mission of control and manipulation. Henri handed Sophie a dossier filled with photographs, documents, and surveillance reports. "We've identified several key operatives in safe houses. The Phoenix's network is extensive and well hidden, but we have a lead, a man named Victor Renault. He's one of the Phoenix's top lieutenants and our best chance to get closer to the new leader." Sophie studied the dossier, her mind racing. "We need to find Renault and get him to talk, but how?" "We have a plan," Marc said. "Renault frequents a high-end club in the city centre. We can't confront him directly, but we can plant a bug in his office. It's risky, but it's our best shot." The following night, Sophie and Marc arrived at the club, blending in with the glamorous crowd. Marc had managed to secure jobs as waitstaff, giving them access to the inner workings of the club. While Marc distracted the staff, Sophie slipped into Renault's office and planted the bug. Her heart pounded as she worked quickly, knowing that any moment she could be discovered. With the bug in place, they left the club and returned to their safe house. Over the next few days, they monitored Renault's conversations, piecing together valuable information about the Phoenix's operations and plans. But the more they uncovered, the clearer it became that they were running out of time. The Phoenix was planning something big, and they needed to act fast. One evening, as Sophie reviewed the latest recordings, she heard a conversation that made her blood run cold. The Phoenix was planning an attack, a massive coordinated strike against several high-profile targets in Paris. The goal was to create chaos and seize control during the confusion. "We have to stop this," Sophie said, her voice trembling with urgency. "We need to warn the authorities." Marc shook his head. "We can't trust the authorities. Le Cercle Noir has people everywhere. We need to take this directly to the public." They decided to go live with their findings, using the bug's recordings to expose the Phoenix's plans. Sophie set up a live stream, her hands shaking as she prepared to speak to the world. "People of Paris, this is Sophie Duval. I have uncovered a plot that threatens the safety of our city. Le Cercle Noir, under a new leader known as the Phoenix, is planning a series of attacks to create chaos and seize control. We have the evidence, and we need your help to stop them." As the broadcast went live, viewers tuned in from all over the city. Sophie played the recordings, revealing the Phoenix's plans and the identities of key operatives. The response was immediate and overwhelming. People took to the streets, organizing to protect their city and support the authorities in thwarting the attacks. The next few days were a blur of activity and tension. Thanks to the public's vigilance and Sophie's brave exposé, the attacks were foiled, and several key members of Le Cercle Noir were arrested. But the Phoenix remained elusive, a shadow in the night. Sophie stood on the balcony of her apartment, looking out over the city she loved. The battle was far from over, but she knew that as long as she had the truth on her side, she could continue to fight.